Actually, Eric does a really good job with the mic. It's not everybody who is born saying, it's 70 degrees and sunny here in the conference room. That's kind of new, right? I like that. That's really good. So I was asked to talk today to you about what we do going forward. And so what I'd like to do in the next few minutes is we're going to talk about the past. We're going to talk about the present. We're going to talk about the future. We are going to discuss secrets for succeeding in Tucson that you may not know. And then we're going to time travel together. Does that sound of interest to you? Yes. Okay. I put up here intentionally Ideafunding 2016 because I don't want to talk about today. I want to talk about this day 1 year from now, where we're all going to be back here talking about what we did over the last year. As many of you know, yesterday was Back to the Future Day. We celebrated it down at CoLab. This is my cohorts and I showing off some of the technologies that were developed as expected for the future. Welcome to the future, by the way. You made it. Congratulations. You're now here. But when we talk about Tucson, recently we talk a lot about the past, the very recent past. Justin mentioned this morning the 2013 Entrepreneur Magazine rating of Tucson is one of the best cities for entrepreneurs. And that's a great ranking. We talk about the Desert Angels and the work that they've done and the ranking they've had in the last years as one of the most active angel investor groups in the country. And we talk about the Money Magazine rating this year about Tucson being one of the best cities for millennials to move to. And that got me thinking, what other rankings might be out there? So I started doing a little digging to see where we fell. Well, Fortune Magazine rates us as the number 4 city in the country for retirees to move to. That's not a very big surprise. It's a retirement community. But that's interesting from a couple of viewpoints that most people don't think about. The first thing is, if you don't need a job, people move here in droves, which means that we've got half the battle already won. We just need to solve the economic development side of it because people who don't need to work are moving here all on their own with barely any marketing, right? It's already halfway done. You can't say that about Bismarck. Right? We've got an advantage there. The second thing that's interesting about that is that if you look at the value structure of the next generation of workers, they are quite focused on work-life balance and work-life integration. They are not just going to put 70 hours a week into a company. They won't. They want to live a life that's exciting, that's experiential, that allows them to do the things that they enjoy. And it's a similar desire to those of folks who retire. They want to have culture and art and music and the outdoors. So we have something that works for the next generation of employees and the next generation of workers. The third thing is that people retiring here bring 2 things that are extremely valuable: capital and knowledge and experience. We're bringing some of the top mentors in the country that we could ask for into this community every year. People who are retiring as VPs and executives and C-levels from all over the country and all over the world who've had big successes, and they're sitting in the foothills or out east waiting to be invited to the party, waiting for us to reach out to them and get them involved in what we're doing. And just because they don't think of this as home yet does not mean they will not engage if asked. So it's something that we can do to take advantage of this ranking and think about it in a different way. Another ranking I found. Some of you have watched online as we get ranked various times by a company called Move2, which is really kind of a content farming company that tries to get people to use some moving calculators, some other services. And they rank it. We keep popping up all the time. Tucson keeps popping up in the top 10 for these Move2 rankings. And I wanted to see if they'd ever aggregated all of that. And they did. In 2014, they put together the most caring cities, the least stressed cities, the least boring cities, the least snobby cities, the cities with the most state pride, and the cities that are best for cats. And out of 100 of the most populated cities in the United States, Tucson ranked number 2 on that aggregate scale. Birmingham, Alabama is beating us in the cat index, I'm quite sure, and we have to do something about that. But when you start comparing the total package of cities, we rank pretty high on a lot of interesting scales. Now, this one's kind of fun, but there's one that no one's talking about, and I can't believe no one's talking about, that we need to take seriously. We're number 6 for women in tech in the United States. When you look at women executives in technology, you look at the gender pay gap, you look at the opportunities for women, we should be walking out of here trumpeting this to everybody we can talk to, because this is an awesome achievement. When you look around this city, you look around the University of Arizona, look at the women in leadership roles. Look at the women in biotech. Look at the women in engineering. This is something we can be proud of and something we can develop, and it's an advantage for us moving forward that we need to take advantage of. Now, that's the past. Let's move to the present. Why here? Everyone sees this. We take this for granted now, right? This never gets old, though, does it? These sunsets, they never get old. Every single time this happens, my Facebook feed is full of people taking cell phone photos, right? And you're like, I've seen a million sunset photos. But we live in a beautiful place that has a lot of diversity. That's very interesting from the outdoors, right? We have a pretty interesting university with world-class research, with people trying to commercialize and monetize intellectual property, with great minds, with innovation and leadership. And we have some sports teams that people talk about every once in a while, I've noticed, that seem to do pretty well. But we have something else. A lot of cities have those things. We have a very unique culture. And that culture is hard to put your finger on. It's hard to build a metric around. It's hard to quantify. But it's not quite Mexico, and it's not quite California, and it's not quite the Old West, but it's something uniquely Tucson, right? It's All Souls. It's this weird blend of cowboys and hippies where you can be independent and you can afford to pursue whatever your passion is, and the community doesn't judge you for that. That's a really unique combination. It's something very powerful as we move forward, again, with the next generation of entrepreneurs and workers. We have a great music scene, we have a great art scene, we have a great cultural scene, we have great restaurants. We have all the things that those people move here to retire for and all the things that millennials would want to move here to stay for. But we actually have young people who are here. We talk a lot in this community about stopping brain drain and talent from leaving. And we should be talking just as much about supporting the people who have made the commitment to stay here. Because they're in this audience today. They're in the community right now. There's a picture of some of them. And they're making the commitment now, and they're ready for mentorship and support and capital and the drive that we need to give them right now. And so we should focus on those wins, the people who are here. The people who show up at Ideafunding and Startup Weekend. The people who show up at 10 West events. And the people who sometimes travel through time. This was actually taken in Tucson last year. In a way, we kind of, once you integrate the technology, we're not just cowboys and hippies, we're cowboys, hippies, and engineers. It's kind of an odd combination when you think about it. But it's the frontier mentality of being willing to take risk and finding really interesting problems to solve, coupled with this individualism that in the rest of the country is not necessarily understood. The Old West still has power, and it still has power here, not because of the stories we used to tell, but because of the attitude we still have. And that's something else that we can trumpet about our present. So everyone in this room is probably thinking, all right, so now what? How do I impact this? How do I make this work? How do I improve things, right? Well, it's pretty simple math. One of us pushing really hard, 5 of us pushing really hard is not going to get anywhere. Everyone in this room pushing really hard for a year changes the future. You shift time. You make an impact that is viral. You grab 5 friends and go to an event. You grab 10 friends and go to a startup weekend. You show up. And these are some of the secrets about Tucson that I told you I was going to share with you. The first one is, the main thing you need to do in Tucson to be successful is show up consistently. If you keep showing up, they will put you in charge of something. Because you just keep showing up and you're always there. They might as well. It's amazing the power of showing up. The other secret that people won't tell you is to stop talking about what the hell you're going to do and just go out and do it. Because we are fascinated in this city with telling people why something won't work and having a discussion for 10 years about how things would or would not work and that'll never happen. And then if you just go out and do it, everybody jumps on board. Action is magic here. It's like you're some sort of mysterious alien who somehow figured out the secret to life because you took action. It's a powerful thing, and it doesn't have to be big. Courtney Fay is in the audience here. Courtney, is she in here? I think maybe she's out working. She's the community manager for Startup Tucson. And every Wednesday morning, she gets up and goes down to CoLab and makes coffee for 1 million cups. That's a small thing. But 50 companies a year introduce themselves to the community and get valid feedback from people in banking and industry and business. And someone has to show up, open the door, and make the coffee. It doesn't have to be a big thing. Just show up. People show up to judge. We have judges here. They show up to mentor. I see these faces all over and over again. I see the same people contributing their time and their expertise. And that's what it takes to make a difference between this year and next year, is more people to do this. We launch incubators. and accelerators. We have startup weekends. We have meetups. We have hackathons, right? These are showing up and taking action. You see the consistent theme here? Showing up, taking action, showing up, taking action. This is what yields the difference. We have companies that are pushing the boundaries of what people say can be done in Tucson. Everything from IPOs to going from a startup weekend to fundraising to rethinking your energy bar company into something that's scalable and that's a technological company. All of those things happened here, and they all happened recently. And we have 10 West, which 8 months ago didn't exist. And through thousands of actions by dozens of individuals has been created out of nothing and raised 10 or 12 times more money from sponsors than people said we could, and put on 90 events in the last 2 days that had an average attendance of 20 or 25 people during the middle of the day during a week, right? That will have 2,000 people probably show up over the course of a one-week festival that didn't exist a year ago, and that people told us probably couldn't be done. And you know what the secret is? It's not about this year. This year was just doing it so that next year people would buy in. Because next year people go, oh yeah, 10 West, that's the thing. I'll get behind that. Because we showed up and we took action, right? It works every single time here. You have all seen my predictions of the future, my aspirations for the future, the Tesla video we did, the 10 West video that we did, looking at Tucson and the future and where we're headed. But what I want you to think about now, as we prepare to time travel a little bit, is what is your vision for the future? What does work look like in Tucson next year, or in 5 years, or in 10 years? How do we take innovations from the past and repurpose them to continue to be disruptive in the future? How do we think about the tools we already have in the toolkit and use them to be more successful? How do we build a city that we want to see? How do we create a future that we want to go to? How do we change the way we interact with technology and each other? What does the future of Arizona look like in our world? So a little bit of time travel. I want every single person in this room to think about one statement 1 year from now you want to be able to make about Tucson. I'll give you an example. I work in the virtual reality industry now. We've got a small startup. Next year at this event, I would like to be able to say that we have had one hit game or cinema experience in VR. Considering how few people are producing that, that's not real tough to do. There aren't a lot of VR producers out there. Top 10%. That's one thing I want to do next year. Now, here's the trick with time travel. You have to envision that statement in the future. So get that statement in your head. You're going to need it. Everybody think about it. You go to the future. You look back to today, and you create the space for that to happen. You take the actions for that to happen. You state it and tell people what you want to happen. You show up and you take action. So when you walk out of here today, you're going to go out and grab a drink. And we're all going to hop in this time machine and go back to the future together. And I want you to tell each other your statement for next year. And I want to see how many of you can help each other achieve that, what you can unlock, what you can discover. Because together, just the people in this room, we can alter the future. Thank you very much.